Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most ambitious and honestly, one of the most controversial political projects in modern history, the European Union. It's this incredible idea that took a continent basically defined by centuries of war and turned it into a massive zone of cooperation.
But it all really started with one simple but incredibly powerful question. After two world wars that just tore the continent apart, European leaders were absolutely desperate to answer this. And the answer they came up with? Well, it launched this huge, continent-wide experiment in peace.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down today. We'll start with how the EU grew from the ashes of war, then see how it became an economic powerhouse. After that, we'll look at its big leap into a political union, tackle the huge tension at its core, and finally, look at the moment that tested the whole project, Brexit.
Okay, let's dive right in. Because to really get the EU, you have to picture the world it was born into. We're talking about a continent that was completely shattered.
The first big push towards unity wasn't some grand philosophical idea. Nope, it was a condition tied to cold, hard cash. The United States offered up billions to rebuild, but there was a catch. All these old rivals had to actually work together on how to spend it. This forced cooperation, that was the real beginning.
And the next move was, honestly, kind of genius. 6 nations, and this is the crazy part, including historic enemies France and West Germany, they all agreed to manage their coal and steel together. Think about it. By pooling the two things you absolutely need to build tanks and guns, they literally made it impossible to go to war with each other. It was brilliant.
So the ESCC was this huge success. It proved that, hey, this whole cooperation thing actually works. So pretty naturally, the founders decided to think bigger than just coal and steel.
And this is the next logical step, right? By 1957, those same 6 countries created what they called the Common Market. They started knocking down trade barriers on all kinds of stuff, and this is key. They let their citizens travel and work freely across borders. They were literally weaving their countries together piece by piece.
All right, let's fast forward to the 1990s, because this is where this economic project starts to look like something way, way bigger.
This timeline really shows you this wasn't an overnight thing. The Maastricht Treaty in '93 was the finish line of a 40-year marathon of slow, careful integration. And that treaty, that's what officially created the European Union we talk about today. It was a massive pivot from just economic friends to a real political union.
And believe me, the EU wasn't just a new name on the door. It came with some seriously powerful new institutions. We're talking about a single currency, the euro, that would replace historic money like the French franc or the Italian lira, and a brand new European Parliament to make laws for everybody. This was a whole new ballgame.
But, and this is a huge but, this incredible success story, all this integration, it created a massive new problem, a fundamental tension that really has defined the EU ever since.
And to really get what's going on here, you have to understand this one key idea: national sovereignty. It's a simple belief that a country should be in charge of its own destiny, its own laws, its own borders, its own identity, without anyone else telling it what to do. It's the ultimate counterforce to the whole idea of a united Europe.
And this, right here, is the great trade-off. It's the central conflict of the whole project. On one side, you've got all the amazing benefits of being in the club: peace, money, the freedom to just pack up and go live in another country. But on the other side are the costs: giving up control over your own money, your own laws, even your own borders. It is a constant, delicate balancing act. And you can see this trade-off in very real, sometimes painful ways. Just look at the euro. Yeah, it made trade super easy, but it also meant that a country couldn't print or devalue its own money to get out of a recession. Remember the Greek debt crisis? Greece was stuck. It couldn't use its own monetary policy and was forced into years of brutal austerity measures dictated by the EU. It's a perfect and really tough example of what happens when you give up that sovereignty.
Sooner or later, this tension was bound to hit a breaking point. And for one member nation, it did, leading to a historic, messy, and totally unprecedented decision to just leave.
Yep, we're talking about Brexit. The United Kingdom's exit is the ultimate case study of this exact struggle we've been unpacking. It put that core conflict, unity versus sovereignty, on the world stage like nothing we'd ever seen before.
So, why did it happen? Well, it's super complex, obviously, but almost all the reasons circle right back to that trade-off we've been talking about. For just over half of British voters back in 2016,
The scales had finally tipped. The desire to take back control of their own laws, their own borders, and their own identity, it just became more important than all the economic perks of being in the EU.
Brexit absolutely set a powerful precedent, but the European experiment is far from over. What it does is leave the EU, and frankly, all of us, grappling with a fundamental question at the heart of this whole thing. How do you balance the incredible benefits of unity with the very deep, very human need for a national identity? And at the end of the day, is that unity really worth the price?